Hello and welcome to All About Bikes, our weekly show where we answer all your two-wheeler related questions. And this week, let's start with the questions that we got on Instagram. Shravan has asked us what is a comfortable cruising speed for the Xpulse 200 and that many owners are facing minor issues with their bike, so is it reliable? So we had heard about issues with the BS4 Xpulse, but nothing really with the BS6. We've got one in the team, we are running a long term and we've not really had any issues there. So if there is any particular issue that you know of, then you can of course highlight and tell us, but as of now we are not aware. And as for the comfortable cruising speed for the Xpulse, you're looking at between 80 and 90 is where it feels the most comfortable. It can cruise at a higher speed, but then it's not as comfortable or as natural to the motorcycle as, let's say, 80 and 90 is. Shreyash has asked us what's the best scooty under 1 lakh, 125cc engine. So I guess scooty you're referring to, like we would refer to photocopying as Xerox or bottled water as Bisleri. So it's essentially you want a scooter, and the scooter for under 1 lakh for 125cc, we'd say you have two options. If you want something sporty, something nicer sounding, something that's a little less efficient, you could look at the Ntorq, TVS Ntorq. And if you want something that's more homely, so to speak, and lighter, then there's always the Access 125. Shivansh has asked us, or he's actually made a few statements saying that what would be the next big change in upcoming motorcycles. So he says we've got ABS and fuel injection, and now we're seeing the advent of smart consoles or Bluetooth connectivity. And he says with a laughing smiley that could we see airbags as the next big thing. So I think having airbags is still a far-fetched dream, especially on price-sensitive motorcycles like we have. But it's a great thing to have if you can. I mean, we're seeing that internationally, some manufacturers experimenting. But for India, I think the focus will remain on the smart consoles for now. I think there is still a lot more that one can do with the smart consoles. We've seen that in cars, in bikes, with still a very non-interactive sort of, I mean, you can connect and that's there, and once it's there, right? There is a lot less that you can do to move around and see and play with, which you can now in higher-end bikes. So maybe we'll see that. We'll probably see color TFT coming in a wider thing, but that's where it's going to be, because there's a lot more value that people associate with something that they can see and feel immediately. And now let's take some questions off Facebook. We've got Raghvendra, and he says that he owned a Royal Enfield Thunderbird for a year and a half. Later he sold it. Now he's looking to buy a new bike for a budget of almost 3 lakh, what he should go for. So if you like the Thunderbird, then maybe you can look at the Meteor, because it's just a nicer Thunderbird in every which way, be it refinement, be it comfort, be it the way it rides, the gear shifts, etc., braking. So that's something. But if you do not want the Thunderbird experience and you want something that's, let's say, sportier, more street bike oriented, then you've got, for this money, I think you could look at either the Duke 250, you could look at the BMW G310R. These are motorcycles that are a big shift from the Thunderbird riding experience, but still workable in the city. Harish has asked us, is there any news on the Royal Enfield Himalayan with the 650cc engine from the Interceptor? No, there is no news, and I think we spoke about this last week as well. We will see the Cruiser first, and we will see another iteration which will not be a Himalayan version but maybe a scrambler iteration for the 650cc platform. But there's no news on the Himalayan sporting the 650, because it just is going to add a lot more weight, etc. Maybe they'll have to work around that, but as of now, no, there isn't. Joseph wants to know which is the motorcycle that he should go for. His options, the options that he's listed are the Himalayan, the Gixxer 250, the Meteor 350, and the Highness, the Honda CB 350. He likes all of them. He wants to know which bike will suit him. He's 6 feet and a heavy person. So I think the Himalayan, the Meteor, the Highness will all suit you with your height, and I don't know how heavy a person you are, but that should suit you. But my recommendation would be that if you like these bikes and you've ridden them, then you can pick and choose between the 3 that you like the most. And if you haven't ridden them, then you should go ride them, because at the end, the riding experience is more important than how you look on a bike. So that would be the key. Saurav says that he's looking at a motorcycle that costs between 1.5 to 1.7 lakh rupees. He saw some options. He says he looked at the Bajaj Avenger 220. He says, can you help me more around it? So if you want to know about the Avenger, more about the Avenger 220, then it is a nice motorcycle to ride if you're looking at comfort over short stints of time. You've got low seating, you've got a spread out seating triangle. So, but it's not a bike that you want to spend long hours in. Also, it's a motorcycle that's now pretty old in every which way. I mean, in terms of design, in terms of features, in terms of the engine, chassis, etc. So you will be, so that's the thing. I mean, if you want something more modern, then but with a similar seating triangle or close to it, then the Meteor is a good option. If you want, but it might be a little more than your budget, because 1.7 is what you said is your top thing. I think this would be over 2 on road. So that's there. But if you could look at some more comfortable street bikes as an option as well, you could look at the Extreme 160R. It's a favorite at BikeWale, and it's a nice motorcycle, easy to ride motorcycle, so that's also something you can look at. But yeah, if you want the Avenger 220, we just told you what works, what doesn't for the motorcycle. Saptak has asked us, what is the difference between a metal tank and a fiber tank? Second is, I really want to go with the Dominar 400. Is it reliable for long term? And is it good for occasional long trips with the pillion? So the difference between the metal and a fiber or a plastic tank is, as you say, one's metal, one's plastic. The advantage and disadvantage, of course, is the plastic tank is lighter, and what you see on the outside is not the tank sits under, which allows you to do some really difficult shapes to the tank because you're just molding plastic. It's difficult to do that on the metal tank. Metal tanks are simpler because it requires that sort of work. So that's the thing. When you fall, you will have a dent on a metal tank and you will break the plastic cladding or the cover on the plastic tank, but the plastic tank sits under. The other advantage, disadvantage, of course, apart from lightness, the plastic tanks are lighter, the metal tanks are heavier, is that you can use a metallic tank bag on the metal thing, and you can't so much do that on the fiber thing. And if you're into custom motorcycles or thereabouts, the metal tank allows you better options when it comes to customization of paint jobs, etc. So that would be the difference. The second part of your question, where you say about the Dominar 400, is it reliable? Is it good for long trips with the pillion? Yes, it is a reliable motorcycle, and the new Dominar 400, or the one that, not the PS6 version, is a much nicer version than the one that was originally launched. So you can definitely go for that. It's comfortable to do long trips in. You can live with it in the city, and you can the pillion seating is okay. It's not supremely comfortable, but it's workable. Soumya Dev has asked us which is better, the TVS Ntorq race edition or Ntorq, and the Suzuki, between the Ntorq and the Suzuki Burgman, which is a better scooter. He's looking at handling, he's looking at seat height for a person, 5 feet 4 inches. And the second part of the question is there any leakage problem in the external fuel tank of the Ntorq? For the latter part of your question, no, there is no leakage. We had a long-term Ntorq for a while. We've also got one in the team, owned by a team member. No issues there whatsoever. Now, between the Ntorq and the Burgman Street, I would say when it comes to overall riding experience, when it comes to the seating, etc., the Burgman Street makes more sense. It's a lighter scooter. It's a more efficient scooter. It's in our opinion, a nicer looking scooter. The Ntorq sounds good, but it's heavier, and even in terms of handling, I think the Burgman Street works better than the Ntorq, especially if you're going to filter through traffic. So Burgman Street would be our pick. Shrikant says that he's 20 years old and he's currently got a Charisma R. He's looking to upgrade. He is interested in the Apache 200 4V, the new one with riding mode. Should he go for it? and his budget is 1.5 lakhs. So the 4V on-road would be about a little over 1.5, but it's a nice motorcycle. We haven't ridden the riding modes one, but even the regular 200 is a lovely motorcycle to ride. It's very involving. It handles well. It could do with a little better braking, but seating ergos are nice. It's comfortable to be on. So yeah, I mean, if you like the 200 and we like it here, so we'd say, yeah, go for it. And now let's take a couple of questions off Twitter. First one is from Pratyush, and Pratyush wants to know, or he says that he's currently riding a Dominar 400. It is way heavy for him, and should he switch to a Duke 250 BS6? So yes, I mean, if you're not comfortable with the Dominar, the Duke is a lighter motorcycle. It's also, in terms of how the weight is distributed on the motorcycle, it makes it easier to ride compared to the Dominar, which is a lot front heavy. So yes, you can definitely switch you can trade in your Dominar and go for the Duke 250. The second question is from Priyanshu, and he wants to know which is the better motorcycle when it comes to handling, the Duke 200 or the NS200. So the Duke 200 hands down. We'd say the RS 200 comes closer, but the Duke is a lighter, more agile motorcycle than the NS. If you want a better handling motorcycle, then the Duke is the one to go for. And now let's take some questions from the video that we did last week on YouTube. And thank you so much for writing, lots of questions, so we'll take them one by one. First up, we've got Saranjit, and he says he's 5 feet 5 inches. He says he rides Bajaj V12 right now. He wants to upgrade. His budget is around 2 lakh rupees. And he says that he'll be riding the motorcycle mainly in the city and maybe do occasional highway rides. Currently, he's confused between the RTR 200 and the new Hornet 2.0. So he says, which one should he go for? We'd say go for the Apache. The Hornet in traditional Honda way is it's smooth, it's got light controls, it works as a city commuting bike. There's nothing really exciting about that motorcycle apart probably from the way it looks and those golden upside down forks, which don't really add to anything. We're also not very happy with the ride quality of the Hornet, especially the rear. It kicks about a bit. So between these two, the Apache makes more sense. It's sounds better, it has better performance, and it's handling wise, involvement wise, it's got more character. So if we had to pick, we'd definitely take the Apache 200. Askar Razi says that he's confused between the Duke 250 and the 250 Adventure. He says, is it worth spending more money for the Adventure 250? He says that he's also heard that it gives more mileage than the Duke 250. So is that true? And his usage is essentially daily commutes and weekend rides. So we'd say, I mean, that's what we had experienced with the Duke 390 and the 390 Adventure. The 390 Adventure was the better Duke. I mean, in every which way, if you were looking at that class, the Adventure 390 was a better motorcycle to buy compared to the Duke. We haven't ridden the 250 Adventure yet, but we think the same thing should apply here because you've got nicer seating ergos, you've got a little more go anywhere ability compared to the Duke 250. It'll be more comfortable as well, the Adventure. But we don't think the Adventure should give you more fuel efficiency than the Duke because essentially the engine, the gearing, all of that is the same, but the Adventure is a heavier motorcycle. So yeah, but like we said, we haven't ridden the Adventure 250. Once we do, we'll have a better picture. But from the looks of it, it makes more sense than the Duke. Gagan says that he's looking for an ADV and which one is better, the Xpulse or the Himalayan. He says, I want to use the motorcycle in the city as well as for touring. So if you're going to be using the motorcycle mainly in the city, then we'd say the Xpulse makes more sense. But if you're going to be using the motorcycle for touring more, then the Himalayan makes more sense. And we say that because the Himalayan is a heavier motorcycle. It's a slower motorcycle when it comes to filtering through traffic and to live within the city because there's more weight to lug around, whether it's parking or otherwise. The Xpulse much lighter and so easier. But yeah, when it comes to touring, the seating ergos of the Himalayan, it's much easier to stand up and riding when your backside starts to hurt after hundreds of kilometers. And overall, it's just a motorcycle with more torque, nicer cruising speed, so that's the one you should go for. Zishan says that he's 5'11", and he's on the skinnier side. He says his budget is 2 lakh rupees plus minus 10k. He's confused between the Gixxer 250, the Naked, and the Meteor 350. He wants a motorcycle for daily commute and sporadic touring. So which one should he go for? So we'd say the Gixxer 250 makes a lot more sense for your needs. Since you said you're on the skinnier side, and the Gixxer is also on the skinnier side compared to the Meteor, especially when it comes to weight, not so much in terms of visual bulk. So, and it just is a better motorcycle to commute on or to live with in the city. It's much easier to filter through, much better under braking. So yeah, the Gixxer 250 is the one you should go for. Nishan says that he's looking for a bike which can do daily city, on which he can do daily city riding and high-speed touring. He says, can we help him pick a motorcycle between the KTM Duke 390 and the Royal Enfield Continental GT 650? So between these two, we'd say go for the KTM. I mean, you want a motorcycle with high-speed touring. The KTM is, I mean, it's just a livelier motorcycle than the GT, and it will be a more comfortable motorcycle to tour on because it's more upright. The GT, you're going to be sitting on your wrists or leaning on your wrists, which will start taking its toll after a few kilometers, few hundred kilometers maybe. So go for the Duke. So Amit is planning to upgrade from his Shine, and he has Shine is a 125cc motorcycle for those not in the know, and he has shortlisted the Avenger, the Meteor, and the Highness. He says he'll be using it in Mumbai and suburban areas. He's 5'8". Which one should he go for? So we'd say the Avenger is really old now, so avoid that. So it's a thing between the Meteor and the Honda Highness. The Honda Highness is more street focused in terms of its seating ergos and the way it performs, etc. So from the Shine, if you've had a great Honda experience and you want to stick with the Honda, of course, go with the Highness. What you get with the Meteor over the Highness is a torquier engine and a more comfortable seat and a better ride. But for city purposes, I think ride the two and take your pick. Royal Roy says that he's looking for a motorcycle under 3.5 lakhs. He's looking for a powerful but lightweight motorcycle. He's looking for a motorcycle that's easy to filter through traffic with, and he personally likes the Interceptor, but he's heard that it's not very traffic friendly and you can burn yourself on the motorcycle. The other one that he likes is the RR310 and the CB350. So which one should he go for? He says he's open to ideas. Now, we'd say if you like filtering, if you like riding fast, or if you like quick filtering and you like a motorcycle that's more alive, then the KTM Duke 390 is a good motorcycle to go for. The Interceptor is also good to commute on, but it's got these exhausts that come out quite wide, so it's not very easy to squeeze through gaps, and it takes a while to get used to those exhausts. What also happens is that people look at you, especially if there is like an SUV, they're looking at you, they're looking at a motorcycle, they don't realize that your exhausts are coming so far off, so they come and hit you from time to time, which is not very pleasant. So if you want to use a motorcycle for commute, skip the Interceptor, go for the Duke. And if you don't like the Duke and you want to make a choice between the Highness and the RR310, we'd say go for the RR310. It's going to be much nicer to filter through traffic. Now, Surya says that he's been riding a Honda Activa for 4 years and he's not sure about his capability or ability to handle a motorcycle, but he wants to switch to a motorcycle, and he's asking us to recommend a motorcycle that's easy to handle, easy to maneuver, and on which he can do some long distance touring. So I think you should start with a slightly lower capacity motorcycle. So I think a 160 is a great place to start. The Extreme 160R is our pick in that class of motorcycles. But if you feel that you want something bigger, which we don't really recommend straight off the bat, but if you choose to, then you can also look at the Gixxer 250 or the FZ25. Again, light motorcycles, a little more power than the 160R, but again, easy to handle. Nandu Krishnan has asked us about the new Apache RTR 200 and its adjustable suspension. It says, he asks, does the new Showa suspension on the Apache make any noticeable or practical difference when riding on bad roads as compared to the previous version? And can we take it for weekend touring? So can you take it on weekend touring? Of course you can. So there's no two ways about that. As far as the suspension goes now, we haven't ridden the motorcycle. But the point is that an adjustable suspension, and in this case you can adjust the preload at the front and the back. What this allows you to do is to tailor make the suspension to work for you. So manufacturers, when they roll out motorcycles, when they set up the suspension, they set it up for an average Indian, which could, I don't know what the basis for TVS is, but it's not a motorcycle that can work for everyone given the weight differences that we all have, right? So the best way for a suspension to work is in its mid-stroke, which means it's not completely bottomed out or it's not completely topped out. And to do that, you need to set sag on the motorcycle, and preload adjustment allows you to do that, which is what the Apache is going to allow you to do. So depending on whether if you're 60 kgs or 90 kgs, you can set the sag set differently and get the motorcycle suspension to work in its mid-stroke or the most effective part of the suspension. And when you do that, then of course the ride over bad roads, the ride everywhere is going to improve dramatically. George says that he is 6'3" in height and weighs 100 kg. He needs a motorcycle to commute on, 100 kilometer commute. That's what he says. This is what motorcycle should he go for. So we'd say go for an ADV. That would help your suit your size and weight. You could look at the 390 ADV if you've got lots of money to spare, or you could look at the Himalayan if your budgets aren't that much. But these are the motorcycles that you could look at. Maybe with the Himalayan you might want to tweak the rider's seat a bit and maybe add a bit of height because it's a little too low. But otherwise, these are the motorcycles that might suit you really well. Sarvesh says that his daily commute is about 15 kilometers. He tours once a year for maybe 2,000 kilometers. Which includes 30% off-road, and so he says, which one should he go for? Should he go for the Dominar 250, the Dominar 400, the Meteor 350? And is there any news of the Rebel 300 being launched? So first let's tackle the Rebel question. We thought that the Rebel would be the CB350, but Honda has made the smart choice of developing a motorcycle completely from the ground up for India, which is the CB350. Now that the CB350 is here, there will be no Rebel 300 in India. It doesn't make sense to have both the motorcycles. As for the other part of your question, which one should you go for, the Dominar 250, the Dominar 400 or the Meteor 350? Since you say that you've got or you will have 30% of off-road riding, so you need a motorcycle that when the going gets tough, you should be able to stand on it, which the Meteor doesn't allow you to do. So then the question now remains whether should you go for a Dominar 250 or the Dominar 400, and we'd say the Dominar 250 makes more sense because it's better balanced, so it'll work better on the road, it'll work better on off-road, and it'll be an easier motorcycle to live with. So Dominar 250 is the one you should go for. Ayush has written to us and says that his dad is going to gift him a motorcycle once he goes to college after 12th. He's confused between the Meteor 350, the CB 350 or the Classic 350 new platform. So first up, I guess after you leave college, you'd still be 17 and not 18. Unless of course you've dropped a year or so and you're already 18, then of course it's great. But buy a motorcycle or get a motorcycle if you want to ride on the road when you're 18. If you want to ride in a closed area, not on the road, then of course you can buy whatever, it doesn't matter. And which of the three should you go for? You gotta wait till you get into college. So I think it'll be a nice time to answer this question once you're in college, and then we see by that time the new Classic 350 should be out, and then we'd be able to help you out of which of the three should you go for. And that's a wrap on All About Bikes. Thank you so much for watching. Do comment, share and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.